SANTACO has failed in its bid to stop the city of Cape Town from impounding its taxis. The Taxi Council argues that, that the city was not abiding by the terms of the agreement reached by the parties last week. But the High Court found that the provincial government had been working within the confines of the law. We're now joined by Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at the UNESCO Oliver Tambo Chair of Human Rights at the University of Fort Hare. Professor Fobosi, good to have you on the program this afternoon. Maybe let's get some context to get us started. Could you summarize the recent dismissal of SANTACO's interdict against the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape Mobility Department by the Western Cape High Court?
Right, thank you, and thank you for having me. Good day to the listeners, to the viewers rather. To start off, the impounding, happened, as a result of some of the taxis, operating, without operating licenses, and some of them not obeying the rules of the road. And so that impounding is taken from Section 87 of the National Land Transport Act. So the city was following that act, to impound taxis. And SANTACO, approached, the city officials to see to it that the impounding could be lifted, and unfortunately that process was not granted. And we know for a fact that the impounding of taxes, also intersects with broader economic issues, right? For many taxi operators, driving taxis or vehicles is their primary source of income. So in most cases, it then, put them in a difficult position when their taxis are impounded.
Like you explained, there are wider implications to this, but let's speak about the impact that this has, or this dismissal having on this ongoing relationship between the minibus taxi industry as well as government authorities. I mean, the court's dismissal upheld impoundments for commuter safety. Could you explain the legal basis for these impoundments under the National Land Transport Act?
Yes, thank you. So the Section 87 of the National Land Transport Act requires that taxis, be impounded if they operate without operating licenses. And you will know for a fact that there are still operators who still driving taxis, with what they call permits. They're still waiting to have operating licenses, and of course that is not their fault. It's the fault of the issuing authorities, and that's the provincial regulatory entities. An entity that is taking time to issue operating licenses, such that there are backlogs as it stands now. So that's one of the challenges. So taxis that then not obeying the rules of the road is another second part. So they are then impounded.
But how do you see the balance between commuter safety and also addressing the concerns of the taxi industry? And how is this collaborative approach of the minibus taxi task team identifying some of the concerns that have been raised here?
Thank you. You see, when the taxis are driven, and are not in a good condition, so it then puts commuters in a difficult position, the passengers, that is. So hence I've said over the years that there needs to be a point where there is a discussion, there's a collaborative effort, between the taxi operators and between government to look at the issues in terms of what can be done to address some of the problems. And of course, the transformation of the industry, towards legal compliance, for example, requires a multifaceted approach that involves collaboration between governments, agencies, between industries, and also the driver themselves. So it's important that there be collaboration so that the commuters can be assured that they can travel on taxis that are safe to travel with.
You speak about this need for this collaborative approach for the minibus taxi task team and also identifying offences that also threaten commuter safety. But how significant is this establishment of, call it a standard operating procedure, in also ensuring consistent impoundment decisions here?
Sorry, you were breaking a bit. I couldn't hear you.
I'm saying, what role will the protocols for future strike actions, especially requiring this minimum of, 36 hours notice play in minimizing commuter disruption here?
Thank you. If I captured you correctly, I think the collaboration, with between the industry, and the government in particular, could then bring closer the commuters, because one of the problems that I can tell you is, we see the industry complaining that they are not being looked after, by the government, and in terms of and seeing that the formalization process is top down, and of course that's one of the things that I've pushed for over the years to say. In fact, I've recommended for that there be engagement between government and the industry, that the formalization process be engaging, be a bottom up rather than being top down, such that the industries could feel like they are being consulted, because at the moment the commuters are suffering, because the taxis are old. Some of the taxis, have not been scrapped as it stands because they don't qualify for being scrapped, so that's another issue that we can look at, in order to address the problem of taxis that are not in good condition.
One of the matters that arose from this dispute is that of dispute escalation and finding a resolution clause. But then how does this address this potential conflicts between the taxi industry and government as well?
Right, thank you. I think when there is an opportunity to sit down and to discuss, to iron out the differences, because the biggest issue at this moment is where the different operators with their own interests, and of course you'll know that there are two mother bodies. There's SANTACO and there's NTA, and we hardly hear of the NTA. And in actual fact, the NTA represents some of the members there, so the differences, you can see them in practice, in particular, in cases where there's dialogues. For example, recently, I think it was in 2020, there was a national taxi lekgotla, where the NTA did not participate. So hence I've recommended that I think there should be a point where the government invites both NTA and SANTACO to talk about the issues that are happening, to address the problems, to iron out the differences, to look at how they can improve the industry, as one mother body, that represents the industry, in order to address some of the problems that are happening. Because what we need right now is an efficient public transport sector.
Yeah.
That's what South Africa needs. We can't go on, with a poor state of our public transport sector, because you will know that the public transport plays a very big role in terms of the economy of the country.
Professor Fobosi, very quickly now, how can transparency between both parties ensure accurate information actually reaches the public and also dispels misconceptions around the taxi industry there?
Thank you. One of the things that we need, as the public, I think we need to understand, the industry, in terms of its role, because you are correct to say that there are some of the misconception, by the public, the industry being viewed as this violent, and not understanding what is happening, deeply, and you know that some of the issues that are happening in the industry, they are deep-seated. And of course, the violence happens in cases where, for example, there's conflicts over routes, a stiff competition, between one operator who's authorized to operate in that particular route and another operator who's not authorized, but seeing an opportunity to operate there.
Right.
So that's the create a conflict. So that's when we talk about then the regulation, that there needs to be a proper monitoring of what is happening on the routes of to see to it that the operators that are authorized to operate on that route do operate there, so that they are not in conflict, with those that are not authorized.
That's Professor Siyabulela Fobosi, of course, giving us some perspective on that dispute regarding the taxi industry in the Western Cape.